totally edit that out. Not even the bloopers. That's so rude.
Welcome to my vlog, What Do You Do All Day? Today I have a special guest, my friend, Carrie. So I thought we'd start by talking about how we met each other. So I'm going to listen to her version first because I haven't heard it in a while. And I'll edit as she goes.
That's usually how it goes. We met in a Facebook group for Homeschool alumni, homeschoolers. And I forget, honestly, how I first, became aware of you.
Because of my crazy electric personality just shone through the screen.
I think it's because I was organizing an online boutique, and I
like
said,
that we have the same version of the story, because it's true. That's how
okay, good. Because I was like, oh. And I said, who wants to help me?
Well, yeah, so you were looking for vendors initially.
Yeah.
And then, true Erin style, I think I somewhat took it over a little bit after a while.
Yeah, I mean, yes, actually. But
the truth comes
But she
out.
did it lovingly. She's not like you didn't commandeer it.
Yeah, no, I didn't this time. This time I didn't commandeer.
No.
Yeah, no, I had done several things with Facebook groups before. And so as we were working on it, I was like, well, what do you think about this idea? And eventually she was kind of like, how about you just
take
do
it and do it?
but
it went so much better.
Well, I think altogether it just went well. And it was really neat, just kind of the opportunity she afforded a lot of multi-level marketing and also homemade craft vendors. Yeah, so people had a chance to make those wares available to other people during the holiday season. So that's kind of how we initially met.
I think I bugged you a couple times about when you drive through, you have to stop and see me.
Well, and
you have to stop and see me.
When we actually met in person, we were en route moving from Texas to Kansas, and we swung through. She lives in the Dallas area, so we swung through the Dallas area. And first we met at a playground the first time.
And it was way too short.
Yeah, it was super short. I define socialization as preparing my children for a variety of social encounters. I think that pretty much encapsulates it. What are your thoughts on how you define socialization?
On the variety of social issues as well as a variety of generations, like being able to love and include and talk to respectfully to anyone, no matter the age or social situation.
And I think it's especially, new and different social situations can be unnerving for everyone, especially kids. And I think that just preparing our children for what they may encounter and having them, even if they're uncomfortable, they know the proper way to proceed in a way that would both make us proud to have them representing our family and ultimately just show Christ's love to people in a variety of settings. So that's kind of how I just define socialization. I know that kind of sounds religious, but ultimately just the fact that they would think of others and put others first in social settings and know how to conduct themselves. And that sounds super formal as well, but not just in business meetings, but know how to interact with their friends and their peers in a loving and kind manner, sharing their toys
at the park, including the random stranger kids at the park. Not we've had to work with my kids. They're not super outgoing, my two oldest. So work with them you can go out and you can we're at the park, you can go out and be like, hey, introduce yourself. So anyway. Yeah,
some basic social skills.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
And it's lots of little steps that you sometimes don't see progress in. And then eventually you're like, oh, my kid got it. Oh, they were just really nice to that person. Yay! I got it.
I will also say on that subject, on good socialization, is knowing how to be both good hosts and hostesses and good guests as well. When you're staying in someone's home, you should interact with them. Don't be rude and just go sit in the bedroom or the designated sleeping area until your time expires. Interact with them, ask them questions about their life, ask them questions about their, and don't insist on always getting your way just because you're the guest. Yes, they may be good hosts and be deferential to you, but don't take advantage of that. These are the ways to conduct yourself as a guest and then as a host. Make people feel welcome in your space. That's a key part of being good at socializing.
Yes. And I think for kids too, one thing I worked on is playing the games your friends want to play, eating the food that's presented to you, even if you don't like it and you can't complain about it. Like, those are the little baby steps that start with little kids that kind of, as they start realizing it's not all about me, then as they get older, they're starting to think, oh, it's not all about me. And then they start actually being polite on their own. Like, thinking of things to be polite and respectful and stuff that I didn't actually have to tell them because they thought about it on their own, which is always exciting. I think 2 ways. I think being with my kids all the time, I'm able to like teach them, train them on how to react in certain situations. And then when it doesn't quite go as I planned in my mind, I'm like, I can see it immediately and like be like, oh, that's like, what were you thinking? Here's maybe what you should have thought of, types of things. Like, I can get on it right away. I just thought of a third one. And I think it's something Erin said actually recently. I think you said your mom said something, and this is gonna be loosely what I got from what she said her mom said, is that if you can get along with people in your own house, you can get along with anybody.
Yeah, my mom said that as she grounded us.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Basically, if we would fight with our siblings and we weren't getting along with our siblings, she would be like, these are the people God put in your house. Mm-hmm. He expected you to get along with these people or to interact with these people. And if you can't interact with these people in your house, then we're not gonna. If the fruit ain't good at home, don't export it. So we're not going to export your bad behavior and your inability to share and your selfishness to others. And so it's kind of like a nice little, like a testing facility before we export the goods. I think that homeschool kids can be socialized, and I think that public school kids can be socialized, but I don't think that either system guarantees an outcome of socially sound individuals.
Yes.
As far as homeschooling goes, I mean, I think that it's generally accepted that public school kids learn socialization skills because they're around their peers all day. But I think that homeschooling provides some unique benefits in that I'm not, that my children aren't the center of attention at all times. They're not the center of my attention at all times. I'm sometimes cooking, I'm sometimes working with a different sibling, I'm sometimes conducting business over the phone or talking to a friend. And when my children are present, they are expected to interact in a polite manner. They have to wait to interrupt if they need my attention. And if they interrupt improperly, I might pause my friend and say, I'm sorry, Carrie, just a second. Okay, son, I need you to put your hand on my shoulder, wait for a break in the conversation, and then you can talk to me. And then I'll go back and finish up usually the next 3 or 4 sentences with my friend so that they can get a sense for being patient. It's not an emergency, so I need you to put your hand on my shoulder, and then be able to say, all right, son, so what did you need? Also, I have told people I don't subscribe to the survival of the fittest in the social sector. Like, I don't want to throw my kids in to the ring with a bunch of other peers and then have them figure it out all the time, because I want to give them the tools to figure things out in a way that would be helpful. Right. So, you both want the same toy. What's one option that you can do, especially for a younger brother who maybe just wants to participate? Can you find him another similar toy so that he can also feel like he's participating? Then maybe trade him for the one that you really, really want. Now you're going to need to pick a pretty interesting toy, because you need to coax him into wanting the one you want him to have. You can't just be like, we're going to trade now. Here's a broken car and I'm going to take the monster truck. No, you need to find him a comparable toy. Yeah. And so teaching them those ways, problem solving, conflict resolution, and being involved, rather than teaching one to be a bully and teaching the bullied one how to skulk off and find something else to do. Like, I want to actively be a part of the development of those people's skills.
And like, just recently when we were with someone, I was able to pull one of my sons aside and be like, this friend that's right here, he wants to play with you, but his personality is such that he wants to know he's wanted. So you need to, say, hey, come play. Do you want to come play with us? We're moving over here. Do you want to come with us? Instead of just assuming. So I think that's part of it.
Assuming he would follow. And I watched that interaction. I was actually there for that one. And it was really neat because, again, after she explained, he
made him aware.
The rest of you are closer friends, and this other friend you don't know as well. and he's afraid that you guys are kind of a group and you don't necessarily want him. And so after that
Which I knew wasn't the case.
No, everyone was just playing and having fun.
Right.
But after that point, I saw her son make an effort when they moved to make sure to tell him, hey, come play with us. And the child's face lit up and he knew he was wanted. And that's all he needed, was to know he was wanted.
And hopefully my son learned to be aware of like the different personalities of the people. Like, not everyone's like me. Because my sons just, if they want to be with you, they'll just pop in.
They'll come.
Like, they'll come. Then they find something else to do. But help them to see, like, not everyone's like me, and some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
but even if they are like you, different situations can influence.
Call for different things.
Because, the fact that, you know, this again, there's a group of like 5 children who had seen each other on a regular basis.
That's true.
Actually 7. Our kids only have 7. But there's 7 kids who see each other.
There is, isn't there?
That's a lot. But anyway, there were 7 of our kids all, and then this child
someone else,
sees them all playing harmoniously together. No matter what his personality is, he could assume that the familiarity they have with one another just says, we don't want you. We don't want you. When in actuality, they're happy to have him too. So actively making that effort. And that's something that as adults, we were able to observe that phenomenon happening and then encourage, especially the older kids, but the more comfortable kids, and then also the kids that are our kids, the ones we have say over, encourage them to approach that situation in a helpful manner.
But anyway, so I think one of the benefits for us for homeschooling, especially year round for us, is that we can take the breaks that we want to or need to when God puts someone in your life, and learn and be there with them. And I personally, with my personality, don't have to stress about, but we're supposed to be doing school, because I'm a box checker. I like to hit all my things. But homeschooling year round gives us that freedom.
So flexibility to make the most of different social situations as they present
and
themselves.
Not be like, no, I'm tied to the school schedule or the school calendar.
So Carrie's kids are 12, 11, and 7. And mine are 6, 5, 3, and 2. You just turned 2.
Aww.
So baby's 2. So how did you prepare your children whenever we hang out with Carrie's children, even though they are all each individually and collectively and whatnot older than mine, they seem to make my children feel welcome, like they interact with my children. They don't complain about how young my children are. How did you prepare your children to interact with especially younger age groups? So I think older is easier because it's like, oh, these big kids or these adults are listening to me, and so that's a little easier to work with.
Right. I think, again, another benefit of homeschooling is when you hang out with homeschooling friends, you have siblings of multiple ages. So you're not just hanging out with people that are in your grade group, or grade. But I think also, so when we hang out with families, you know, when my boys were younger, we did have to work through, like, you can't just hang out with the one person sibling, you know, friend that you love. You have to include all their siblings. You have to include your siblings. So I mean, we worked through it. And I always tell my kids, for any issue, whether it's, I mean, this actually is my answer to so many things. Why do you include that person? Because they're created in the image of God. Why do you treat that person respectfully? Because they're created in the image of God. So I think teaching my kids, every person's created in the image of God. Even though there were times when they were younger, I'm like, are you even getting this? But I think that looking back on it, I think that gave them respect for a person. And I think that helps you just create that appreciation for your fellow human. Right. Created in God's image. And that respect, and then it doesn't matter what the difference is, whether it's a difference in age or in cultural background or in regional background or you know, whether it's personality, all of those different. I love that. Just reminding them that, you know, this person is a special creation of God. He's also made in God's image, and as such, you can teach them, treat them with respect, and be loving. And which inclusive. I actually also, this is a tangent point question, but I've also used that for my kids, especially my daughter, because just knowing she's a girl, and boys are also created in God's image. They are, even though they're crazy. They are. They are. But kind of knowing, like, some of the struggles I went through as a young girl, as a teenager, just doubting self-worth, you know, those kinds of struggles. Now, as with my daughter 7, and I started a couple years ago, I would tell her, like, you know, I would tell her, you're beautiful, but why are you beautiful? Because I'm created in the image of God. It doesn't have to do with your hair color. It doesn't have to do with your person. It doesn't have to do with anything that but you are beautiful, you are smart, you're intelligent, because why? And I always have her say, because I am created of God. And so I use that too when we haven't had super large problems with bullying, but you know, kids say mean things. But I've always told my daughter, is what they said true? No. Why is it not true? Because you're created in the image of God. So her saying you're ugly or you're stupid or whatever, not true. Because I'm created in the image of God. So it's kind of helped her.
A grounding truth.
Right. That like just because someone says it doesn't make it true. And what
that's
is
a life
true,
skill. I mean, as an adult, that's it's necessary
you need
to know.
Have. And if I had thought of this when my boys were younger, I would have done it with my boys too. But it was kind of one of those things that happened as I matured as a mother. But because I think it's good for boys too. But kids, my 2 boys are the oldest grandkids on both sides of the family. With the cousins, most of the cousins are younger than. They're all younger than my 2 boys. And so in trying to foster a close family unit, like not like extended family, my sisters and I have made a concerted effort to let the kids call each other or Skype or FaceTime or Marco Polo each other. And like at the beginning of the coronavirus shutdown, you know, we did FaceTime or something, but the kids, like my 3 kids played Battleship. Like online, you know, they like the cousin had a Battleship set up, we had a Battleship set up, so they could tell each other that. So we try to, like, when you stop and think about it, sometimes it's inconveniencing to stop what it is that you're doing to, or even with my kids' grandparents too, like it's not an inconvenience like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this, but it's like you have to make I guess intentional is the better word, effort to be like, this is an important relationship that I want to foster. Family, other friends, and we FaceTime friends, you know, our friends in Hawaii, and we FaceTime our friends in California, so that we're fostering those relationships. We're not letting the distance or
the difference in ages.
Family.
Yeah, and I think just really facilitating that. And sometimes, I mean, I know we were actually both homeschooled growing up, and I know that, I mean, sometimes there will be times when everything is not done as a family, but
right.
Not shying away from that, or not only considering socialization when you're spending time with a peer your own age, but also using all of those opportunities to really foster the way that we would like for them to approach those situations with kids that are different ages, or adults that are different ages.
Yeah.
I will say, I know this was a question I asked you, but I will say, I know my mom facilitated that as well when we lived in Florida, and we had a lot of elderly friends at our church, or a lot of elderly people at our church. My mom encouraged us, in addition to whatever friends we spoke to after church.
Yes.
We each got to elect an elderly person to be a prayer partner with. So when the service ended, you were to find that person first, and you got to select your own. And everyone had different characteristics they were looking for. I wanted a regal, elegant elderly lady, and I picked a super gorgeous, regal, elegant old lady, and we would get together. And we didn't call them old ladies, but it was just an elderly person. And then we would exchange prayer requests. I'd pray for her when she was taking care of her mother, and so I got to pray for her mother and tell her about like how school was going, any prayer requests I had, and she would pray for me, and we'd pray for each other. And that was special. And my little sister Katie, she picked an elder that she actually recently passed away, her prayer partner, but it was just the most special relationship, and we've kept up with our prayer partners, most of my siblings and I, throughout the years, and caring about a different generation than yours, and just being aware of what life looks like at those different phases and stages, I think helped. Elderly people do not scare me to speak to or to care about, and I can relate to and empathize with different aspects of their life because I've been aware of their existence, as opposed to being like, wow, we go to this church with all these old people. At least there's a couple people my age, I'm going to hide in that little bubble, to actually actively reach out to those people who are at a different stage of life, and facilitate those relationships, care about them, invest in them, and not just think about myself, but also to think about them and their needs. And that really helps to affect my relationships.
Yeah. Well, and I think with the seniors, I think too, looking for those ministries at church. Like I remember as a kid going to my grandparents' church because they were in charge of the senior, I don't know, activity, the ministry, whatever. And my parents, it was like grandparents. I forget what it was, in all honesty. But we went, and my parents set up, I think the church provided the food. I don't know. But we as kids went and we served the food to them as a, you know, an act of like just respecting the older generation and the wisdom there that they have. At our church now, we've been going there for about 4 years, and it's been a couple of years. My boys were younger, but we went, the older ladies get together to sew and quilt to donate to the local hospital for the children with cancer, or the veterans hospital and stuff. So we just went to help my kids pack their school, but when they were done, even my boys wanted to go in there and help stuff pillows and stuff. And I will say that when they told me after the fact, because I take my kids with me everywhere. My husband travels for work, so we're a package deal. Like, I can't leave my kids.
Carry party of 4.
Exactly. So I didn't even think about it. I just brought my kids, and they told me afterwards that, like, when we walked in, they were like, ugh, kids, like, this is gonna be awful. And we did have, like, I did have to, like, be like, stop, you know,
behave.
A couple times, but generally speaking, my kids loved it because honestly, the older people love to talk. My kids love to talk. They love that one-on-one. So they hit it off. And so here, I mean, as the parent, I loved hearing this older woman share about life, you know, newly married, where they lived, all this fun stuff. And then my kids, and they love hearing my kids talk about school or sports or whatever it is.
And I think
we're serving together too.
A fun tip as well, just for homeschool families. Obviously, once COVID restrictions are lifted.
Yeah, this is all pre-COVID.
Yeah, and even, I mean, now a lot of people post on Facebook about elderly people who would like to have pen pals and interacting with them in that way. But whether, I know that we would go, especially around the holidays, and play music in nursing homes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even not around the holidays. And I think it's especially important not to be lonely during the holidays. And so it's helpful to go and sing Christmas carols or play music or whatever. But I think that a lot of people tend to do those ministries and make time for elderly people in nursing homes around those times. So it's also helpful just to pick a random Saturday in July or a random Thursday in September, so that throughout the year they have people who care and invest. And maybe even maybe it's once a month, so you always go in the third Thursday or the second Tuesday or something, and so that you're building those relationships, you're learning the proper way to interact with people, and you're again removing any kind of stigma your child may have in their heart when they see elderly people, and they're learning to be polite and respectful in the way that they interact with older people. And so I just think that that's, I mean, down, whether it's the people who are younger than you, treating them as fellow image bearers of Christ and being loving, or whether it's elderly people. Again, you have so many opportunities to learn across the board. Or my children, they call Carrie, they say, hey mom, is your friend, does your friend drink coffee too? So they'll call her my friend, like, does your friend? But then they know to call her Miss Carrie. And so, like, well, Miss Carrie said, and they learn that anyone I make call them a title, like Miss Carrie, or there's different ones now. I feel like I don't have any friends because I can't think of anybody's names. That's what COVID has done. But whatever my friends' names are, when they have to say Miss, that usually means someone mommy expects me to listen to and obey. Like, you should listen to everyone who's giving you wise counsel. Like, if your friend says, "Are you allowed to do that?" and you think to yourself, "Actually, I'm not," you should listen to that. But then also, if mom makes you call her Miss Carrie, chances are Miss Carrie comes with the authority of a mom. So you have to listen to. So there's that respect.
How did living in a large family affect your socialization?
Well, because every relationship will be different. And like you were talking about, pointing out to your son that people have different personalities. I think that having a home, I'm one of 9 kids, so there were 8 other personalities in that home.
Plus your parents.
Plus my parents, but eight of like the kid personalities. That, okay, well, the way that you say it to Brianna is not going to work for the way that you say it to Laura. And the way that you say it to Laura is not the same way that you would say it to Katie. Or maybe so-and-so will enjoy, John will enjoy that activity with you, but Paul will not. So you learn those different things. But as far as in public, again, not only, when you got grounded, that's, these are the people who God wanted you to get along with, but also in public, learning that inclusiveness as well. Like, well, you can't play with the neighbor if the neighbor is going to be rude to your sibling. And I think that that's helpful, just learning, again, to stand up for your younger siblings and to value your family.
Which also in this time of so many social issues going on, teaching your kids to stand up for what's right. Mm-hmm. Like to me too, like working through with my kids, like standing. It starts with standing up for your siblings, standing up for what's right, and then it flows out from there that you also stand up when you see someone else. Like if you can stand up for this person who you sometimes don't get along with, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Then you can stand up for a stranger. So I don't know. It kind of follows through.
Yeah, and I think that it's neat as well. Again, with this pandemic, I am glad we have 4 boys, and like I know that that's not everybody's calling, whether they have fertility issues or whether they're just only called to have 1 or 2 or whatever the number is, or all girls, or 9 like I grew up with. You know, who knows? Yeah. Like whatever your family has. But I find it to be a blessing that the boys have a built-in system of 3 boys, because months and months on end of seeing no one would have been 10 times worse if they didn't have each other. Right. So I'm really grateful for that as well. And I feel that way about my siblings too. You know, my husband is deployed and it's not fun, but I do have those. I have a non-familial best friend as well, but I have built-in best friends. I have 3 sisters, and I have 5 brothers, and I also have Carrie, and I have a quarantine buddy as well that we've kind of mostly hunkered down the bulk of this quarantine to just not to minimize our exposure. But those 8 people are always my siblings, and they care about me deeply, and I care about them deeply. And I think that just learning to value the people God put in your life, I think that learning to value my sisters has made me more grateful for my friends, and learning to value my brothers has made me more grateful for my friends as well, and more aware of other people's needs.
Because I have one boy who's more outgoing than the other, so the other one kind of just lets that one break the ice in situations.
Sometimes she needs to,
which is good. Yeah. That's fine, but also giving them the chance of like, you don't always have a family to fall back on. Like, it's a balance. Mm-hmm. It's a balance.
And I remember my mom, again, I love her to death, and she used to say,
I love her mom too, and I've never met her mom.
My mom's pretty awesome.
I'm gonna start quoting her mom.
Right, as Mrs. Radio once said. But she used to tell us on our way out the door, be a joy and a blessing.
Oh, I like that.
And so sometimes in different situations, like, you need to remember, you want to bring joy and be a blessing to the people that you're around, and come back and have people be like, oh. I picked up my kids one time. They had been moved from one Awana's room to another, so they're sitting at a new table, and their new leader said that now it's hard for me to imagine, but he said that they brought a certain calm to the table.
I love it.
Okay. but the amount of energy that transpires in SQ estates is unreal at times, but apparently just they knew when it was time to sit down and listen, and the other kids at the table were able to just kind of feed off of that, and the whole table calmed down. And so I like to raise children who know how to act in different social situations, and it's apparent. So, and then when my mom would say, people call and say, oh, how well behaved they were, and mom's like, and it's not like, and she was very encouraging and grateful as well, but also like, as you should be, like, you should. It should not be that you.
I should not be getting the phone call of what, Arna?
Yeah, well, I mean, they came and.
But all that to say is, even though we are working to raise responsible adults, I'm sure Aaron has too. I mean, I have gotten the phone calls or the people pulling me aside saying your kids are doing something.
Oh yeah.
So we're not saying our kids are naturally angelic.
Oh no, they're definitely not naturally angelic. No. And I most certainly was never naturally angelic. But
it has been a lot of working at home, getting along with your siblings. It has been those faithful friends who have said, just so you know, Carrie, your kid just totally almost. Like, the first time it happened, I was so mortified that someone pulled me aside and said, your kids are racing through the church and are practically taking out the senior citizens. And, that's
not how we prefer them to behave. So being able to, and
then graciously dealing with your kids.
Dealing with it. And that's the thing, like, constantly being prepared. And I think this is something that public school kids also encounter. Like, when you get a note come home and say, they were pushing in the dining hall or whatever, like, similarly, it's not as formal and but when I hear from a friend, so and so was not sharing, so and so was being super bossy or whatever, to be able to pull them aside and say, okay, now this is not how to have friends who want to play with you. You know, this is not the way that God would have you interact with other people. There are some, and talking through the scenario and making sure that they know how to be better next time. Right. Because that definitely does happen too. My kids are not perfect. I'm not perfect. My response isn't even always perfect when people pull me aside. I try to have it be, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. Sometimes it's not perfect. But that being said, like, I mean, I recognize that my kids are not perfect. I also, and I try not to make excuses for them, but at the same time, like, I also recognize that there are certain things that maybe they have a problem with that I don't, and so it's not always a scold. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, you know, Bruce and Isaac, at Carrie's house, she just prefers us to walk up and down the stairs. Please don't slide down her stairs.
And that's good socialization, though, of like
situational awareness. But like, or even like, because our children are older and they help out in the kitchen more. And I remember, I'm not going to say his son because I tend not to like to publicly call out individuals. But one child came into the kitchen. Yeah. They help out in the kitchen though. They're 11 and 12, whereas my children are younger. And so he then started touching something, like I think they had finished with the cheese grater, and he was like, oh, there's still a little piece of cheese in there. And I don't prefer when I'm cooking, unless you're part of my cooking, in which case I'll like designate a task for you to do. But in general, no thank you. Right. Please don't touch stuff in the kitchen when I'm cooking. And it was not, I mean, he was not doing something horrible, and he was not then sentenced to timeout or punished. Right. But at the same time, when I express that as the cook in this kitchen, please don't. Yeah.
That's good.
She has a socially aware enough child for him to be like, oh, okay, well, this is Miss Zescu, Miss Aaron's kitchen, and she would ask me not to do this. And there's not this whole confrontation. There's not this awkward moment. Yeah. There's not, and he didn't slink away either like a hurt puppy, because he just recognized I'm able to say, oh, no, thank you.
But I will say, even the not slinking away like a hurt puppy has been stuff we worked on, because I think kids are naturally, when an adult corrects them, not that you corrected him, but like when an adult says, hey, please don't, whatever, like that is my kid's natural response. So I've had to work with them on like the natural response. I think is when an adult, because I have worked with my kids on, especially people I trust, to respect them as the adult, you know, so it was a natural response for my kids to slink away. I get that, but working with them on like realizing, you know, in this instance, Mrs. Eskew was not fussing at you. She was just stating a preference. So slinking away is not the appropriate. Well, slinking away is never an appropriate response, but like
respectfully listening is good. But you don't need to take it personally. It's not an attack. It's not
just because an adult says please don't do it. It's not a correction. You're not in trouble. And again, that's social. That's
I think just a social response. So it does not create an awkward tension there. So that then when I interacted with that child later, it wasn't like I had to rebuild a friendship that we had built over the course of their visit. We were able to pick up right where we were. And
when you stop and think about it, when they get like evaluations later in life with jobs and stuff, like when I've been evaluated, being able to not take it personally, like, oh my goodness, that's like awful, but to take it as feedback, like, okay. Anyway, so it's
a life skill.
It's a life skill, and like teaching them to take it, assimilate it, and go forth.
Is socialization important for introverts?
Yes. Keep going?
Yes. Tell us about that. Is socialization important for introverts?
Socialization is important for introverts.
I'm an extrovert. Surprise, surprise. And Carrie's an introvert. So no matter what, there's a variety of social backgrounds and personalities.
And I actually have a sister who's even more of an introvert than am I.
But that being said, I'd like to hear, it's even for an introverted parent, the priority that you put on socialization and why.
Yeah.
It's important.
Well, like, I think, introverts they shouldn't live as Christians, as a recluse. So we have to be able to, like, interact in situations. But I think, too, it's been a learning curve for me, especially as my children have gotten older, that even though I might prefer personally to stay home, like, I get energized drinking a cup of coffee, reading a good book, that my children each have different personalities, and I have 3 of them, and as their mom, it's my privilege and responsibility to help each one of them socialize to their personalities and to give them the opportunities to practice socialization even when I would prefer to stay home.
Well, and I think that you have the benefit. You mentioned that your parents were good at socializing you. You were homeschooled and you were well socialized.
Yes.
But being able to put that as a feather in your cap and move on and not have to think about it again is not as a homeschool parent, you have to recognize that your children didn't have all those same opportunities.
Right.
And it's your responsibility, if they're going to be well socially adjusted, introverts or extroverts, that it's something
that you have to think about.
You have to actually start from scratch.
And be intentional and create those opportunities for your kids to learn those skills. Yeah.
And I know, like, at least one of my sisters she's in, I can't remember which direction she says, either an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. The bottom line being that she needs her time to rest and recharge, but she does enjoy that interaction. And I think that helping them find their place in that interaction is helpful so that they can appreciate and enjoy. Because I think Carrie likes hanging out with me.
I drove 8 hours to get here.
She drove 8 hours to get to me. So clearly she enjoys.
And she clearly likes me because she's feeding me delicious food.
I do. I really enjoy it. But I'm an extrovert, so I enjoy the social interaction.
That's fine.
But that being said, you have had to learn and find the parts of being an extrovert. Yes, you also need time to recharge, but you found
the balance.
The parts of extroverted life or of social life that you enjoy. And whether that's finding common interests or whether that's helping to provide, with my husband being deployed, helping to, she had her sons doing my dishes the other day, but, finding ways to contribute to the space that you're in.
Right.
And sometimes just being an encouragement, a joy and a blessing, that can be the part of being an extrovert, but part of being social, that even as an introvert, she's like, well, I enjoy being able to go and help out, take a load off, and just be able to be in someone else's space in a contributing way. I think that that's another aspect of being an introvert and thinking about how that plays into your social life, recognizing your place in the world.
Right.
As opposed to, because I don't like to always be in that place out in the world. Right. Thinking you don't have a place. That's not accurate.
No, not at all. Yeah. I think too, with socialization and my personal preference to, like my kids, because I do like to stay home, like I get energized by staying home. There are times when I'll tell my kids they want to do something. I'll be like, no, we are not going because I need the break and I need to have my time, read my books. So they're learning too that just because it's what they want, sometimes mom needs a break. And then on the flip side though, my husband and I have tried to foster, especially with my 2 older boys, to foster like, if we say no, we're not gonna do that, but they can always approach us with respect and be like, but I would like to do this event or go hang out with someone or whatever it is, and here's my reasoning why. And we're open to change, to also being considerate to them as people create the image of God. Like my boys are old enough that if they do it with respect, that we can approach each we can reevaluate, and we're doing so.
And I think it's also helpful sometimes because, again, in any size family, there's like even just a couple. There'll be 2 of you, and each of you will have a priority, things that are important to you. So, like for instance, if my son really wants to play at our quarantine buddy's house, if he really wants to play at the friend's house, and I say, well, you wanted to watch a show or you wanted to do the pool, can you prioritize which one's more important to you? Because we can only do one of these 2 activities. So that's another one where if you need some introverted time and there are 5 activities they want to do this week, it's like, well, you can pick 2 or you can pick 3 because 2 or 3 of those days we need to actually be home. Right. So then that helps them to and they're going to need to do that to prioritize and evaluate, whether it's college students trying to prioritize their studies and figure out how many extracurriculars they can balance, or whether it's in their adult life. You need to learn how to say no and how to prioritize your schedule. And that's less about, I think it has to do with socialization, but I think developing yourself as an individual is a key component to being a good member of society.
Yeah, that's true. How do you mesh or marry your socialization with your children's socialization needs?
I would say now that I'm a fully developed adult, I try to be adulting most of the time. Now that I'm an adult, my social life takes a slight backseat to my children's social life, and that is to say that frequently the friends that I choose and the spheres that I hang in, I have to consider whether I think they are constructive for my children. So if we're interacting with people who do take more of a hands-off, let them figure it out approach, I cannot be at ease and relax. Like right now, our kids are all playing nicely together. Like we didn't even wait to do this till after they went to bed. Like all 7 children are alive and awake in my home.
We assume.
We
haven't checked anything.
No screeches have happened. But they're all
loud kerthunks.
Yeah, no kerthunks, no screeching. Yeah. So, but there are 7 children interacting with one another.
Yes.
And I don't have to wonder. They know that if there's a problem, you come and tell the mommies and whatnot. But there's less of a anything goes feel. And so because I know that her children are respectful, and they're also a little older, but they're respectful and inclusive and kind and sharing, and my children are being trained to be respectful and inclusive and loving and sharing, then I can hang out with Carrie. Mm-hmm. And if there's a problem, she's not going to side with her child just because it's her child. And each of us will try and guide our children toward how they can do better in the future. And that governs, that does influence a lot of my social life, because now my friends are limited to either people who don't have children, or people who have children who they are actively attempting to mentor into functional adults. That is like my baseline requirement now. Like, you have to actually be making an intentional effort to raise a responsible adult. Yeah. And I don't expect them to be adults today. And my kids are not perfect, and they act out all the time. Yeah. And I don't expect my friends' kids to be perfect. They will probably act out as well. But I do expect that if I bring an actual problem to your attention, a way that your child has disrespected me, my children, or my home, that you would encourage them to find a better way. And if your child comes and they are feeling disrespected by my child in any way, then I will take that seriously as well. And that just impacts who I can be friends with. Yeah, it very much. I do have one child who seems to be more introverted than the others, and frequently, whether we are going places when he'd rather go home, or whether we have people in our space, I've been encouraging him to find what makes him comfortable, because when you're a part of a family of 6 or 11 as I was growing up, or even a family of 3, life is not going to revolve around you. So if you would rather get a book and sit in the corner quietly and read, you may do that. Even here, where the adventure is happening over there, and it may not be as comfortable to you as going home right now, but this is where we are. Yeah. And at home, you didn't want to have company, and we have company. We have a playroom and we have a bedroom, and usually they don't play in the bedroom. But if you're a little overwhelmed by the company, if you would like to take a book and go into the bedroom and close the door, I will make sure the other kids don't go in there. You need your alone time, and you can have it. Right. And then if you're going to come out, though, I need you to interact with the rest of us with a cheerful attitude. So that's how that goes down. So I'd like to know how you work with your children as far as a lot of the situations that come up that are conflicting values. So for example, I have a son who's very competitive, and I like that he is competitive. I want him to do his best. So those are on one end of the spectrum. But on the other end of the spectrum, I don't want him to bully smaller children, to gloat and to be a bad sport. Yeah. And he doesn't always have to give everything his all. Right. He should give it his all attitude-wise, but like, you don't always have to be the fastest sometimes to play, especially with younger kids. You want to encourage them. So like, balancing some of those tension. Right. Being outgoing, but not smothering the introvert. Right. How do you balance some of those?
That's a good question. I think with the competitiveness, when my kids were younger, it was just very clear. If they're younger than you, you don't give it your all, in the sense that your whole point in playing with kids younger than you is to include them, so you're not trying to best them. It's discouraging. And sometimes with one of my boys, I have to, even now sometimes, I'll have to regularly point out, like, Aaron has said that my kids love to hang out with younger kids, and they do, but there are times when they get a little, I don't want to do that. And I have to remind them, like, well, mom and dad choose to hang out with you, and we enjoy it, even though sometimes that does change what we get to do. And so the same thing with the competitive, like, dad went out and played soccer with you, even though dad is a lot faster than you. And even there was a time when even I was faster than them. So like, there was a time. I'm not 100% sure I am at the moment. But, so teaching them like you do limit your freedoms. Out of deference, right?
And I know, like, because I mentioned one of my children was gloating a lot, and it was hurting his friend's feelings, and I had to pull him aside and be like, my example, and probably, I don't know if this is like bad mom moment or good mom moment, like I'm not sure, but I was like, okay, what if I said, you don't know how to drive a car, but I do.
Right.
And he was like, that would make me upset. And I was able to say, now that's how your friend feels. Yeah. You can drive a car when you're older, but you haven't reached that age yet, that capability, you haven't learned yet. And so again, just harness the Bible verse, do unto others as they would have them do to you, that golden rule. Harness your knowledge of how you want to be treated and how you want others to treat you. Right. And recognize the importance of treating others with that respect. Right. Again, because they're made in the image of God. And I think that helps to, as far as I was hoping you had like the magic fix for helping to balance, because I'm not trying to squelch that competitiveness or that. Right.
Well, and I think of also like the whole made in the image of God. Like I try to also help my kids realize that they are not the standard of perfection. So just because they're extroverted or they're competitive or they mastered a skill quickly or whatever, doesn't mean that every other 10 or 11 or 7-year-old needs to be on par with them. Because each person's created by God.
Well, and I think that's also like just recognizing that the things that they do well, that's a gift from God too. So like
God's grace.
God's blessed you with really strong legs and you can bike super fast, and that's amazing. But we shouldn't use our special gifts to make other people feel bad.
Right. And with the whole extrovert introvert talking and stuff, like we also have had to talk with our kids too about like you do sometimes need to shut your mouth and let other people talk. I know my kids, so I can also look at my kids and know if they're doing it with like a mean, like rude spirit, or if they're just clueless.
Well, and I think that
it changes how I approach it.
I will say like across that it is helpful to know. It's helpful to know also what tendencies your children have, because you can be on the lookout for them. So I do know that I have one that, again, when in that scenario where we had our 7 kids and then there were 2 children who were also friends, but they didn't know ours as well. I know that one of my children can be particularly intrigued by the new. And so we don't get to hang out with Carrie's family as often because I drove 8 hours to see us. So my child was more excited to play with his new friends than the old friend that he sees more often. And so even though it was not an intentional, we don't want you to play, he was not as attentive to that friend as he usually would be. And I, knowing my child, knew that would potentially be a problem. And we try to talk a little bit about those social situations before we get into them, but then as they're happening as well. And then again, it really helps to have the new friend reach back to the old friend and really pull them in. And so it's a team group effort. But again, just recognizing and knowing your children, you can be more aware of what the problems might be.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I wish there was a magic
solution for formula. All this. Finding the sweet spot. Because again, I'm grateful that my children make her children feel welcome. But the balance between that and enjoying your friends while they're in town and not being rude to your other friend. Like it's balance. It's all about balance.
Yeah. And I think the problem with finding a magic solution is that every kid is different. So what's a magic?
And every scenario is different. So like every child, every scenario.
Every magic solution for this one kid
may not be for the other.
Blows up when you try with another kid. That's why parenting is not for the faint-hearted. How do you, like, moving a lot, how do you find those new intentional ways to get your family plugged in to be with people in a new spot?
Well, I think that I was always encouraged that, first of all, we know we have limited time as a military family, so I didn't have time to putz around and hope that maybe one day in a few months I would meet people or that would happen. We get plugged into a local church pretty much right away. That church hunt starts right away. I feel 10 times more settled when I know where we're going to go for church, because we'll go, that's at least a once a week activity. So that's one social circle. And then if there's any Bible studies I go to as well, finding what opportunities are available for sports and other local interactions is huge. Also any library reading days, and just being proactive. It's a little easier because I'm an extrovert, but putting in that effort to actively go be at the park, see that woman who has children in the same general age range as mine, or who seems to be, you know, maybe, and I feel like unfortunately my friends probably no friend of mine take this personally, but sometimes just I'll be attracted to you as a friend because I see your child act out, and then I see how you respond to that. I'm like,
it's true.
Oh, look, she didn't just let the kid throw a tantrum. Oh, he punched another kid, and she actually scolded him. She didn't just be like, oh, I'm so sorry your kid was hurt.
Right.
She scolded her child. Yeah. That's my people.
Yes.
So I'm looking for the hot mess express that has a conductor.
Yes.
I need a conductor of the Hot Mess Express. Oh, a fellow conductor of a Hot Mess Express. And so that's where, and I'm always on the prowl at the grocery store. Prowl. Yes, because it's necessary. I'm like gathering and garnering for my little circle of friends, and it's important. Yeah. So I'm always on the lookout for a fellow conductor on the Hot Mess Express, at the grocery store, at church.
So I actually feel very honored that you became my friend before you realized my Hot Mess Express, because we only got to know each other.
But I didn't know you were a conductor, because you were helping your kids in their little endeavor to make their little marshmallow guns.
That's true.
So
that is true. Okay.
It's like, oh, look at the conductor, she's conducting, and her hot mess doesn't seem as messy as mine. But I am judging. Like, do you have a hot mess, and are you the conductor? All right, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
To the crazy train station. I don't know where we're headed, but it's gonna be a fun ride. So that would be. That's fun. And kind of everywhere we go, finding, looking around. Yeah. Google. What's to do in the area.
Oh, she's the queen of Googling.
I try. Google what there is to do in the area, and Facebook. Look for those Facebook groups. Facebook support groups are really great. Looking for your fellow conductors. So, choo-choo.
I didn't know.
I know being good guests is important. We travel a lot. We traveled a lot with the military as kids, and my family travels a lot. We travel a lot. And I know my mom was pretty particular about making sure that she went in the bathroom after we brushed our teeth, and she saw the little toothpaste stains from we didn't wash our own toothpaste. You spit wild nastiness down the sink. She'd be like, go rinse that out. You don't want it to dry there, and then our friends have to scrub it out. That's being a bad guest. So when you want to treat other people and their items, their things, treat them with respect, and be a really good guest. And I know one thing that I appreciate that we do with our children now is that when they have food to eat, whenever I make it, no matter whose food it is, you sit down and you have two options. Or three options. You can eat it quietly. Don't say a thing. Just eat the food. Yeah. That is acceptable. Secondly, you can find...
That is acceptable.
That is acceptable. You can find something nice to say, oh, wow, I really like watermelon. That's great. And you've said something positive about the food on your plate. The third thing that you are allowed to say, you're not allowed to say, ew, yuck, ick, or whatever, or this is gross, or what is this? Yeah. None of those phrases are acceptable. The only other thing you can say is, my, this looks good. Have we had this before? Which is my cue that my children would like to know, what the heck are we eating? So if they'll sit down, and each of them will say it sometimes they'll say it a couple of times, but it never comes out sounding gross, so they can say, my, this looks good. Have we had it before? And I'll be like, yes, it's smothered chicken burritos. We've had it like 1,000,000 times. And I'm like, oh, right, I remember. If we go to a friend's house, my, this looks good. Have we had it before? Well, we haven't had this lasagna before, but this is this very special recipe. So that is a phrase that they can say so that they don't sound disgusted by what our friends make. Yes, so that's my little claim to fame. My children should, when they eat at your house, even if they're eating something new, they will say, hi, this looks good. Have we had it before?
Yes, I love it. I think one of the things that, it kind of along the lines of being inclusive of everybody, is when we do like family game nights, or like the other night we played a game together with, I don't remember if it was last night or what before.
We all run together.
They do all run together, but like when we do a family activity, or I guess not even family, but group activity, our children have to participate. Like they're not allowed to be like, well, I don't want to play that game, or I don't want to do that activity, so I'm just gonna go be by myself. That's like not an option in our family. Like if we're doing something as a family, or if the Martin Vegas are hanging out with the SQs, it's not an option to choose, I don't want to do XYZ activity, or I don't want to whatever. Now I do, with that caveat, like one time we were playing a game with some friends and my daughter did not want to play the game. That's fine. I will not force her to play the game, but she does have to sit down there
and be present
because this is our family/friend time.
I want to incorporate that, and I think I might make like a 1 round, 2 round rule or something. So like if we continue to play this same game,
right?
So and so doesn't want to play it, and we play 17 rounds of it. You may have to sit for 2 or 3 rounds or something,
right.
But so that you're socializing with everyone. But after that 3rd round, if you'd like to be excused to go do something else, you may ask, Mom, may I be excused now? And then that may be a thing. So that way they're not required. Just because we're having fun, they don't have to sit there for forever. But they may get engrossed in even the side conversation. Because I know like one sister, there's a game we play, I think it's Empire. She doesn't love to play, but she'll be present.
Right.
And she actually enjoys like watching everybody play it, but it's a little stressful for her to participate. Right. So I love that. When there's a group activity, you're required to participate. And I also think because that one sister who doesn't particularly enjoy playing Empire, she will graciously volunteer to go and get you a drink of water if she sees that your cup is low. Yeah, so like whatever's happening, she will continue to be a good hostess.
Right.
She usually is also the hostess, like the call person, I guess, for running Pictionary. So she'll give you the clues. So she's not actually participating in running Pictionary, but she is participating.
Right.
And it's nice because everybody else can participate in getting to draw the clues and guess the clues and run back and forth, but she's found her place. And like we were talking about the introverts and extroverts, like maybe she doesn't like to play that game, but she can facilitate it. And in being the facilitator, she's found her spot in that group activity. Yeah. Best advice I've ever heard. I actually have 2. The first one is when
I'll claim one of those.
that one was mine. When we would go to concerts, my mom, because we would go to music concerts. My mom always made us, like, orchestra would be playing, community orchestra's playing or whatever, and we would always dress up. And we had sometimes other people present would not be dressed up, or our friends would also be going, and they would not be being required to dress up. And my mom said, well, you are dressing up to show respect for the musicians who put in the effort. They're all wearing uniforms or dress attire or solid black or whatever. And the way that you dress shows respect for the people who you are there to hear play. And so you need to dress to impress and dress for the situation that you're in. So that helps you also to connect yourself as you're supposed to, because if you're wearing nice clothes, you're also, you're likely to behave yourself as if you're in a scenario that requires you to wear your nice clothes. So that's helpful. It kind of dovetails with my second piece of advice, which a friend's father said. We were on our way to a victory dinner for the Attorney General's run political campaign. It's a whole side story, but we were on our way there. So, but as we walked in, my friend's dad turned to us and said, "Now act like you belong." As we walked through the door, and so act like you belong. Wherever you do not act like you don't belong. Don't be the sore thumb. Don't be goofing off when everyone else is being serious. Just act like you belong. If you're in a group of your peers goofing off at a birthday party, that means you belong. So goof off with all the goofing. Right. But if you're at church and it's a solemn occasion, act like you belong.
That's a good advice.
If you're at a political dinner, if you're dining fancy and there's an extra fork, act like you belong. Yeah. And when in doubt, you can always ask politely or observe what's happening around you, like which fork did everybody else pick up to eat with or whatever, or, but the bottom line is
act like you belong. I like that.
I think that both of us have encountered a lot of dysfunctional advice. Yeah. And sometimes I think that the key, when I look at social situations, when I think of the advice I would take from the bad advice I've gotten, is that when your social rule is self-centered and all about yourself, like you need to be putting other people at ease. You need to be considerate of other people. You need to act like you belong in this space. When your social rule is introverted and looking at yourself, and don't talk too loud, it's always focused on what you are or aren't to do, then that is going to create an attitude in yourself that is not as prepared for dealing with the people around you. So I think that
because it's egocentric, not other-centric,
So I think that the best anti-advice I would get is that any advice that I've gotten or tried to give that is focused too heavily on me.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to take
true.
a minute to focus on others.
Yeah.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carrie and Aaron, semi-socialized homeschoolers. And I hope that just a little bit of what we've shared is helpful. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. You can click the like button below, which will be an encouragement to both of us. You can click the like button below, which will be an encouragement to both of us to know that I don't know which side it's on.
Like you're liking hers.
Come on in.
Okay. Scooch closer.
So.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
But I'm not extra judgy. I'm not. But I am judging.
Like we also have had to talk with our kids too about like you do sometimes need to shut your mouth and let other people talk. I was not looking at you when I said that. I mean, I was, but there was nothing personal there.
Message received.
Message received. Message sent and received. No.
Facebook support groups are really great. Both to watch the drama go down and just scroll through and eat your popcorn. And then also, again, looking for your fellow conductors. So, choo choo.
I didn't know you just watched drama go down for fun.
Oh, yes. I'm a newspaper reporter.
Oh, that's true.
So drama is kind of our game.
Yeah.
So sorry, everybody. I'm gonna put this here so I can kind of see my notes. Okay, because that's gonna be cut out. It's not even gonna have that.
Okay.
Okay. So edit. So now we're gonna say our best advice. The best advice you ever heard. Maybe you'll know after you hear mine.
Okay. I'll just be like ditto. I just heard it right now. Ditto.
As we walked through the door,
did you seriously say pshaw to me?
I did say that. My advanced social skills, that is wide and very vocabulary.
I'm trying to think of advice. I don't have any advice.
Did your mom tell you to tug your tag in?
Probably. I'm trying to think what was. So, military family. I guess both growing up and now. And I was gonna say in real life, but in adult life. You're in real adult life. In real life.
Is socialization... Okay, here's my question for you.
This is so scary. You're like editing it as you go.
I go. You have no idea what's coming.
I know. I never know.
Okay.
You can also learn to like. Sorry. There's
stupid motorcycle. So I'm gonna just pick up right
You're
there.
So funny.
So just don't go ahead.
I didn't even hear it.
It's just that little brum. I know.
I see. I forgot.
Pardon?
I forgot what's that.
You let them have one on my
Mm-hmm. I feel like as soon as we say that,
of course, there's gonna be screaming.
The next thing we hear is not gonna be a motorcycle. It's gonna be our kids.
It's gonna be. Okay.
But
so
we're talking about socialization.
Calm down and be quiet. Different places have different
I now know my wonderful friend likes caramel, not caramel, caramel. So I will make sure I have caramel at my house.
Oh, you don't must have caramel.
No, I'm actually thinking about making a beautiful cheesecake that's a caramel cheesecake if I have enough time.
So I'm going to Carrie's house next week. Now I'm booking a trip. Don't be scared.
Okay. I know, right? I have no idea what's gonna come out of her mouth.
So Carrie.
Mm-hmm. And we've had complete strangers stay at our house. I mean, not like creepy complete strangers, but like, I kind of know you. You need a place to stay? Sure. Well,
I was kidding you.
Okay. You were never creepy.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I was never creepy.
She was never creepy.
Are you gonna?
That your mom said.
Take my thought. Okay. The next question: how does homeschooling help? Oh, how does homeschooling help prepare you? I'm gonna work on. You touch my shoulder.
Why?
I'm just saying. Use your shoulder.
Oh, I'm like.
Yeah. And so when in doubt, you can touch my shoulder.
Okay.
So because as you're talking to me, you lean away so that you're not spitting in my face. I'm not gonna mind if you spit in my face.
You are much better than I am.
Yeah. No, you're doing great.
You're
already.
Like charismatic and fun and loving, and I'm just like.
You actually sound more charismatic and fun and loving than you.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
No.
Yes, you do.
No.
I love you, and I think you're fun. So
there we go.
That's all that matters. Because
it is your video. Because you're well socialized.
So, Random strangers.
Well,
don't get in the van, child. That's also part of socialization. No,
yes.
not to interact
Not who
with.
to talk.
We're having a good time. This is a good.
You have to tell me. We're having a good time, Carrie.
You're having fun, Carrie. This is what fun looks like.
I wanted to make sure they could see.
Yeah, keep the humans alive. It's just coffee.
This is my favorite mug of Aaron's. I need one of these.
And it's pretty phenomenal.
It is.
It's like today's goal: keep the tiny humans alive.
Yeah.
So schooling.
Sorry, my head will get cut off in the middle. I just heard what you said. It took a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. Okay.
More like.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, scooch in a little because it looks like
looks like I don't like you.
Yeah. No. How do you define socialization? And we'll actually pause here, and there'll be like a little thing that comes up and says, "How do you define socialization?"
Oh, okay, cool.
Talk about so.
Okay, because you're running late.
Yes, as kind of always.
And
Are we ready?
I think so.
Okay.